Late last night, screenshots of a 4-hour speech started flooding China's AI and investor circles. By the next afternoon, almost every trace of it was gone, deleted off WeChat, scrubbed from social platforms, links replaced with content not found. The man who gave that speech runs one of the most important AI companies on Earth. And the strangest part isn't what he said. It's that his own company seems to have wanted nobody to hear it. To understand why this mattered so much, you need to know who was talking. Liang Wenfeng is the founder of DeepSeek, the Chinese AI lab that, in January 2025, released a model called R1 that briefly wiped around $1 trillion off US tech stocks in a single day, because it performed close to America's best models at a fraction of the training cost. Nvidia alone lost roughly $600 billion of market value in one session, still one of the largest single-day losses any company has ever recorded. Overnight, a quant fund founder nobody outside China had heard of became the face of a new question the entire industry was suddenly asking: was America's lead in AI actually as safe as everyone assumed? 18 months later, Liang went after that same fear directly, telling the room that Nvidia's moat, the thing supposedly protecting its dominance in AI chips, is crumbling faster than most people think. He argued China's homegrown AI chip industry has reached a point where the hardware and the surrounding software ecosystem no longer have real compatibility barriers, meaning domestic alternatives can now slot in where only Nvidia used to fit. In his view, nothing can stop that substitution process once it's already underway. It's a bold claim from someone with every incentive to talk his own country's chip industry up, but it's also coming from the one founder who has already proven, once, that he could blow up the market's assumptions about who needs what hardware to compete. Fast forward to now. DeepSeek had just closed its first ever outside funding round, more than 50 billion yuan, north of $7 billion, a huge shift for a company that had spent 2 years funded entirely by its founder's hedge fund. To mark it, Liang sat down with a room of investors for a meeting that ran almost 4 hours. Tencent Tech, one of China's biggest tech outlets, later published a lightly edited transcript, 118 points covering strategy, chips, pricing, and where DeepSeek thinks this whole industry is headed. A separate recording, dated back to May, spread through WeChat groups as an AI-transcribed file before the links quietly disappeared. The first idea that spread fastest was almost a relief to hear from someone building frontier AI. Liang doesn't think AI is close to fully replacing people. His reasoning was specific. Humans learn continuously from lived experience, updating in real time as situations change. Today's AI systems don't work that way. They need the full context of a task spelled out for them before they can act on it. Close that gap, and you change everything. Until then, according to the person running one of the 2 or 3 labs most likely to build it, AI augments people. It doesn't replace them. His second point cuts even closer to how most people actually experience AI right now. He argued that for the average user, the bottleneck was never raw compute. It's labor. People don't wake up wishing they had more processing power sitting idle on a server somewhere. They wake up wishing they had more hands, more hours, more help getting through the work in front of them. In Liang's framing, the entire AI industry has been selling intelligence as a technical product, when what people are actually buying, whether they realize it or not, is a stand-in workforce. Then came the industry gossip everyone actually wanted. Asked directly who's winning the AI race, Liang said Anthropic is currently ahead of OpenAI, but called that a snapshot, not a verdict. His view was that the lead keeps rotating. Anthropic today, but Google and OpenAI both have the resources and the research depth to retake it at any point. Coming from a founder who has no obvious reason to flatter any American lab, that take landed differently than the usual PR-approved rankings you get from people with something to sell. He was just as blunt about his home turf. China's AI market, in his view, has too many companies racing to build their own foundation models at the same time, more competitors than the market can realistically support long-term. His prediction: consolidation is coming, and the field will eventually narrow down to a small handful of real players. It's not a controversial call for anyone who's watched a hot tech sector before: boom, overcrowding, shakeout, survivors. But it's a notably cold-eyed thing to say out loud when you're one of the companies currently in that crowd. Culturally, DeepSeek runs against the grain of China's famously brutal tech work culture. Liang said the company doesn't push overtime, arguing that real research needs a calm, focused environment, not people running on fumes. Instead of constantly patching the product to chase every feature request, DeepSeek deliberately holds back, choosing long-term research over short-term firefighting. In an industry that treats burnout as a badge of commitment, a founder saying, "We'd rather stay comfortable and think clearly," is its own kind of statement. He went further, telling investors flat out that DeepSeek isn't trying to become the next ByteDance or the next Tencent, the two Chinese giants every ambitious startup in the country is usually measured against. Both built empires by aggressively monetizing every product they shipped. Liang framed that path as the wrong one for DeepSeek: restraint over expansion, research over revenue maximization. For a company that had just taken $7 billion from investors who presumably want a return, telling them, "We're not optimizing for the number you're used to," is either remarkable conviction or a genuinely awkward thing to say in that specific room. On open source, he didn't soften anything. Liang restated his belief that AI could eventually make up something like 10% of global GDP, an almost unimaginable slice of the world economy. His argument: if one company tries to lock down and hoard that much value for itself, history eventually breaks that grip. Empires that try to own the entire pie, in his telling, don't get to keep it forever. It's a philosophical bet as much as a business one, and it's the same logic DeepSeek has used to justify giving its models away for free while competitors charge premium prices for access. He was surprisingly dismissive about one of the industry's most obvious revenue streams too. Selling API access, in his words, isn't actually an attractive business model. His logic: when a product is genuinely good enough, users find their way to it on their own, without a company needing to build out a massive sales and support operation to chase them down. It's a quiet dig at the whole enterprise sales machine that companies like OpenAI and Anthropic have built around courting big corporate accounts. The last big idea ties everything together. DeepSeek, Liang said, builds its models first and foremost for its own researchers to use. The company's real bet is that building AI to accelerate AI research is the fastest possible road to AGI, a self-reinforcing loop where each better model helps the team build the next one faster. It's not a new idea in the abstract. Every major lab claims some version of it. But hearing it stated this plainly, as the actual internal strategy rather than a mission statement line, is rare. So why did this all disappear so fast? According to people who saw the original material, DeepSeek had explicitly asked everyone in that meeting not to record, screenshot, or share any of it. That request didn't hold. Fragments leaked anyway, spread fast enough to become the biggest AI story in China for a day, and then got pulled down hard enough that full transcripts became difficult to find within hours. DeepSeek never publicly confirmed the recording was authentic, and never explained the takedown. That silence is doing a lot of the talking here. A company that just took its first outside money, worth billions, watching its own founders' unscripted, occasionally unflattering opinions about rivals and its own market spread uncontrolled, has very obvious reasons to want the story contained, whether or not any single line in it was actually damaging. Compare that to how the American labs operate. When Sam Altman or Dario Amodei say something interesting in public, it's almost always inside a keynote, a polished interview, or a carefully worded blog post, filtered through a comms team before anyone outside the building hears it. Unscripted, unguarded founder commentary almost never survives contact with the public in that world either, it just gets managed differently, shaped before release instead of deleted after. What makes the DeepSeek leak unusual isn't that a tech founder said something a company later regretted. It's that, for a few hours, the outside world got to see what a top AI founder actually thinks when he isn't performing for cameras, before the usual machinery caught up and put it back behind glass. Zoom out, and this episode says less about one leaked meeting and more about where AI is heading globally. Here's a founder whose company forced Silicon Valley to recalculate its own lead, openly admitting the lead itself keeps shifting hands. Here's a lab sitting on billions in fresh funding, arguing that chasing profit maximization is the wrong long-term strategy. And here's a leak that got erased not because it revealed some shocking secret, but seemingly because a newly well-funded company suddenly has a lot more reputation to protect than it used to. Whether Liang's predictions age well is a different question than whether this speech mattered. It clearly did, enough for a mountain of people to risk sharing it before it vanished, and enough for someone at DeepSeek to decide it needed to vanish. In an industry where every lab performs confidence for the cameras, an unscripted 4 hours of a founder just thinking out loud, wrong turns and all, is rare enough on its own to explain why it spread. And it lands at an oddly fitting moment. 18 months after DeepSeek first proved the AI race could be reshaped overnight by a company nobody was watching, its own founder just reminded everyone, on the record and then off it, that he doesn't think any single lab's lead is safe either, including, implicitly, his own. The bigger question is what happens the next time someone at a major AI lab says something true and off-message in a room they thought was private. Because if DeepSeek, the company that built its entire reputation on radical openness and giving models away for free, still felt the need to erase its own founder's unscripted honesty, that tells you something about how little room even the most transparent labs think they have left to just talk. If you want the next leak, the next shutdown, the next story nobody official wants to confirm, subscribe, because this industry is not slowing down anytime soon. Thanks for watching all the way through, see you in the next one.